Very strange. I guess we're in the courtyard. That makes us the courtyard. This has been amazing. I've enjoyed this. I should talk about the first time I met James Franco, probably. I think I thought the first thing that a lot of his future co-workers and directors thought when they saw him, which is, I'd fuck the shit out of this guy. Handsome, very friendly. No, I was 16 years old, I think, when we first met. You were like 20, which means I was like pretty sure you'd lost your virginity, which made you awesome in my book right away. One of the coolest guys I'd met. At that point, you had a leather jacket. That was fucking rad. And honestly, one of the first things I remember talking to you about is we were on Freaks and Geeks, and we were both on this TV show, and you mentioned that you were still in acting class. And I remember thinking, wow, we're both on a TV show, and this guy's still in an acting class. What a stupid idiot he is. We've done it. We're here, man. We're getting paid for this shit. But no, he really wants to keep learning stuff, which I thought was very weird at the time, but I've now seen that somewhat of an odd addiction he has, and we just all have to stand by and watch. He took acting incredibly seriously, especially for being on a TV show no one watched. He'd talk about his character like it was a real person. Daniel wouldn't do that. I remember he'd say that. That's a weird thing to say. I don't know what my guy would do. I have no clue. My guy would say this shit on this piece of paper. That's it. But even at the time, he was very, he worked hard. I remember I would write stupid scenes, and he would sit around and read them, and then as soon as we started smoking weed, he would leave, which was pretty funny. And then I remember our show started coming to an end. It was getting canceled. Scott Sasso was the guy's name who canceled it. You couldn't remember earlier. I don't know what he does now, but he's not up here, I guess. I remember talking to you, actually, and you were saying that there was a James Dean movie that you may do, and I was definitely one of the people convincing you not to do that. I was like, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm going to play fucking Laurence Olivier in a movie. That'll be rad. Scene will be Orson Welles, and we'll all just go out and pretend to be great actors. I was totally wrong. He won a fucking Golden Globe, so, and that's when they were legit, so, it's pre-network television Golden Globe. That's a whole other thing. Then he did some movies I never saw, Annapolis and Flyboys and shit. I didn't see those, but yeah, I did. Okay, I saw Flyboys, because at the end you're on a blimp that's blowing up as you're running across it. I remember thinking, that's fucking badass. I don't care who you are. If you can run across a blimp as it's exploding, that's unbelievable. You actually learned how to fly a 1939 airplane for that movie, if I recall. No, that's not true. I just make that up. But I actually went years and years without seeing Franco, except in movies. So I did see the Spider-Man movies. That was impressive, I remember. And then it wasn't until years later that we ultimately met up to do Pineapple Express. And after hearing him talk tonight, one thing has become remarkably clear to me, and that is I should never have let him play that role in Pineapple Express. Because I'd be talking to fucking Leonard Maltin, and he'd be up here. Stomping out for 2 hours, driving to fucking Santa Barbara to give this 5-minute speech, and I'd be nominated for an Oscar, and not him. So we live and we learn, I guess. Maybe next time. He did do a great job in Pineapple Express, actually. He was very dedicated. He actually, there's a scene in the movie where he runs into a tree, and he actually ran into the tree and cracked his head open and got many stitches on his forehead, which is why his character wears a headband throughout the majority of the movie. And I remember thinking, like, that is badass. Like, I'd go home for 3 weeks if that happened to me. But he showed up the next day, and, like, my career isn't predicated on my looks nearly as much as his is, so it was very impressive. I think, I mean, a lot of people know he's amazing in the movie, and I think the one thing that makes his performance the most impressive is something that most people don't know at all, and that is the truth. Me and James Franco have never smoked weed together in our entire lives. Whoa. That is insane. I've smoked weed around him around 4 million times, and I've blown it in his face a lot just to kind of try to, for the story, I guess, but it's never actually happened. So that alone deserves a second Golden Globe nomination. They were up there way out at that point.